Hey there, I'm at the Warren Dunes State Park in Michigan, and going on a little hike around the trails here. Looks like there's a nice network of trails. This actually rolls right up to the Lake Michigan. So there's sandy dunes on the beaches there, but there's all kinds of cool nature trails around as well. So it's mid-January, freezing cold, trying to stay warm, but still enjoy some outside. So come on with me and enjoy the adventure. All right, looks like they have a really nice trail system here at Warren Dunes. And I think taking number 3. Number 2 goes up the hill back towards the lake. Maybe I'll head out to number 4. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. All right, number 4 it is. We're going on number 4. Looks like a pretty good trail. A little bit of snow and ice, kind of slick. There are some nice campgrounds and stuff through here, but those are closed off. But looks like this bridge may lead back to the campground area there, so that might be fun. Little connection back to the trails here. This creek goes through it. Big mountains, big sand dunes. That was a trail that goes up that dune mountain that I decided not to take. That might be a down trail instead of an up trail, but we'll see. Whew. Well, if you look, that trail is pretty snowy and icy. This is a well-traveled trail, and it is packed down really well. So I did find a little bit of a bridge, and it had slopes on either side. I've got my stick. I was helping myself up over the slope, but obviously frozen. The creek's frozen here, but there was ice on the backside. So I was a little careful, but even with my hiking boots, I slipped and fell. And of course, God made us where we're nice and padded to where the areas you fall down on usually are pretty soft and padded. So I landed on the butt cheek and my hand, the padding of my hand, and I'm okay. So no problem, didn't hurt or anything. But my Apple Watch, really impressed. I do have it configured to detect falls and to notify. It immediately vibrated and dinged and said, "Hey, looks like you fell down. Are you okay? Do you want me to call SOS? You want me to do a SOS and call your emergency contact, which is my wife or my kids?" I said, "No, I'm okay." And then it said, "Okay, well, for further information, did you fall and you're okay, or did you not fall and it was a false alarm? How do I know, how can I detect and learn for in the future?" So really impressed. If I would have fell and hurt myself and hit my head and not been able to respond, it would have immediately called my emergency contact, which is my wife, and she knows exactly where I'm at. She's about 5 or 10 minutes away. So very interesting. Good gadgetry, good devices nowadays, so I'm thankful for that. Anyway, back to the trail. Even in the winter, the cold of the winter, where all of the plants are dead, the trees have lost their leaves, it's just ice and snow and mud where things have thawed along the trail, and just fallen leaves. It's still just beautiful. Still beautiful and enjoyable to be outside. Today it's about 25 degrees or so below freezing. Very cold, but you can easily bundle up appropriately, get the right things that you need to stay warm. And as long as you're staying active, that helps as well. I've just layered it up here and having a good time enjoying the beauty of the nature that we live in. Beautiful stream flowing through here. Very nice. Now this big mountain here is mostly just made of sand. These are the sand dunes, and probably, I say 300 or 400 yards. I'd say just 300 or 400 yards on the other side of these dunes is the coastline for Lake Michigan. And of course, looking across Lake Michigan, you really cannot see the other side. So it looks like an ocean. It looks like, the distance of an ocean. You can't tell that Illinois and Chicago area is on the other side of the lake. I think on some warm days, calm days, clear days, sometimes if there's not a lot of haze, depending on where you're at, you can see across. But I know today and this weekend in mid-January, we cannot see Chicago or any skyline on the other side of the horizon. It's just water. Very nice, very interesting. I'm trying to keep an eye out for wildlife. Here's a black squirrel. Kind of interesting. We've seen several of these. I can't see them now. We've seen several of these, but these squirrel that live here are jet black. Very, very interesting. Very different than what you're used to seeing. I just saw one jump around up there. Yesterday, Christy and I, my wife and I, drove through the park here and saw several deer, young bucks, had some antlers, roaming through, and it's very beautiful. Now you may be thinking, oh, you're crazy. You're out there in 20, 25 degree weather, or below freezing, outside in the snow, in the cold. That's ridiculous. I would never do that. Well, I'll tell you, it's really not too bad if you are bundled up appropriately and layered appropriately. Obviously, I've got my head covered, gloves on. I've got a buff around my ears, and keeping that warm. It's keeping in the warm air from my nose and my mouth, so my face is staying warm. I just have a bit of a fleece zip up as my outer layer today because I don't want to get too hot and sweaty. Under that, I have another little zip up fleece that's a little bit thinner. Under that, I have a thermal. Under that, I have a base layer. I have on my zip off cargo pants, my outdoor pants, but under that I do have a base layer, like a microfiber Under Armour type base layer pants as well. So, and then nice thick wool socks and my hiking boots. So other than my nose every once in a while when I stick it out, and my hand when I take my glove off to operate my camera here, really stay pretty warm. And just the walking and the hiking and that sort of thing keeps your core body temperature up as long as you have most everything covered. So it's not that bad. Don't mind it that much at all, especially for short periods of time. So get out and enjoy that if you can. Okay, this is something interesting here, that the trail passes through an area that's open for hunting. And because we're in January, mid-January here, it says no shooting April 1st through September 14th. We are in the zone for hunting, and I did see on other signs that there might be hunters here. So I know the park closes at dark, and one of the best times to hunt is right before dark, in the dusk. And I did see some trucks out there that might be hunters' trucks. So for my own safety, I think I will not pass through the trail in this section today. I don't have any hunter orange on. Of course, I'm not wearing camo. I got this blue, which should be pretty visible as well, but I think I will disregard the area, or not go through the area where the hunting might be. There's tons of deer here, tons of nice game to hunt for. I'm not against that. I just don't like being mistaken as a target. So I'm going to invert my route through a section that does not include that. So, wise move. I find this so interesting. Here's an area where a tree has fallen over, and because of the root system, you can see the roots, big roots connected right there. Because of the root system, it's taken so much of the earth with it. But if you go back over here on the other side and look closer, there's actually 3 trees side by side. I don't think they're connected. They're 3 separate trees that have fallen over. I don't know if the weight of one lifted the ground for the other 2, or something, fell off on the other side of it. Very, very interesting as you consider kind of the life of the things that you walk by, and the things that you see in nature, and how those things happen. Imagine the sound, the noise that was when those 3 trees went over, and all the other little saplings there they landed on. So interesting. When you're out walking, always look for signs of animal. I saw a little critter climb up the tree and step into a hole. Things like this. Now, it could be that somebody's out walking their dog and they didn't clean up after it appropriately. But looking closely at this, you can see where there's hair and stuff in it, and it's a little discolored. That's probably a good-sized coyote, maybe even a wolf out here. I'm thinking probably coyotes. Another thing you notice is the game trails, and when there's not snow on the ground, sometimes they're hard to tell. You just have to look for the weeds that are beat down, or the path through the leaves. But it's a little easier to find those common game trails where there's snow, and where the snow is started to melt or melting. It's easy to see where there's been a path and there's no more snow through that path, and you can see where the leaves have been beat down. I'm seeing many of those running up into the hill over the crest or the ridge, as it might be deer or coyote or whatever. It takes that same route over and over again. Here's a nice one that goes through here and back along this way over into across the water, it looks like. So interesting. If I was just sitting in a tree or sitting still camouflaged and watching those trails, you would see what kind of life exists out here in the woods and what kind of critters or animals are running around through here or there. And it'd be quite interesting and beautiful. Again, here's more signs. Looks like maybe a coyote print, which looks very similar to a dog print. Coyote prints generally don't have the claws. I've seen on my walks a few bobcat or wildcat prints, and they actually don't have the claws, whereas the coyotes do have the claws, because the cats can retract their claws and they don't show up in the pads, or it just shows up as the pads in the prints. So little mice and critters. Sometimes you see things like rabbit tracks. You see that a lot. That's pretty common. Those are pretty easy to identify as well. Sometimes you see things that have the foot, and then you also have a tail trail along with that as well. So something to look for and think about. If you look online, there's all kinds of charts and posters that help identify what animal tracks belong to what animals. Here's another situation where a big tree has uprooted itself and has become a bit of a natural bridge across the creek there. And not two together, but two very close have done that. And you can see the soil down there is very sandy and loose. That might contribute a bit. You can see where this tree was starting to lift over the trail, and it's been cut down across the creek as well. Yeah, I think the sandy soil might partially contribute to some of the loose root systems in these trees. Oh, here's a big one. Leaning a little bit. He's being held up by that thinner tree, but he's starting to lift away a bit from the soil across the creek. A few more up here, very common. Maybe that's something that starts to happen as the creek rises or flows faster through heavy rains. It washes out the soil underneath the edge of the root systems. It's kind of funny because the trees grow next to the water because they're well watered, and that's good for the tree. But then if they get too close, they grow too close, and the water starts to erode at the root system underneath it, then it becomes a problem and washes the soil, washes the life out from underneath it. Similar to that guy right over there. See his roots exposed? So I'm in a state park here in Michigan, and everything is very well maintained and controlled here. But one of the things to think about if you're going out about in the wilderness is, you know, all these animals and signs of animals. What's the risk to me? Are there animals that might be dangerous? I actually did today, before I came out, a quick Google search to see what are dangerous animals in Michigan and the area. And really the top most dangerous identified were spiders, like a brown recluse spider or a black widow spider, or even ticks and mosquitoes can be very dangerous. And the likelihood of being impacted by one of those insects is much more it's much more likely, a higher likelihood than, you know, by a bear or a bobcat or something like that. So some other things that are listed for Michigan were black bears, and I believe they hibernate through the winter. Oh, slick spot. So I'm not so worried about those guys. But also I was a little surprised to see that a wolverine was something that was listed as a dangerous animal in Michigan as well. So the pictures look like they're kind of small, but they're a little wiry, and they have sharp claws and teeth. Kind of look like, to me, reminds me of a badger where I grew up, but certainly something to be aware of. Just listen for critters and signs of critters around you, and certainly steer clear where it makes sense, and definitely prevent bugs as much as you can with the insect repellent and such. So something to think about. I'm going to pay attention to the slick ice. Now here's the bridge up here that was a little bit slick, where I came crashing down on this side of it. Again, the snow is packed down pretty hard, so that's a bit of a sheet of ice right there as you go over. So we'll see if I can do this on the edge where the snow is soft and use my hiking stick. Oh, made it up the ramp pretty good. No issues, no problems. Take a look around, see if there's any critters or anybody watching. See if I fall. And then here's the slope down on the other side. Again, on the edge, the snow's pretty soft. There's a little bit of a bush, a tree I can hold on to. Not a problem, piece of cake. Just gotta be careful of those spaces. Honestly, that type of accident is probably much more dangerous than the critters. I was talking about those game trails. Here's an example of where the snow's beat down and there's a trail back through there where deer and critters come across. Nice. All right, looks like we're getting back to the trailhead. Well, that was a great hike through the dunes here, the Warren Dunes in Michigan area. Beautiful, always great to be outdoors. A little chilly today, but we bundled up and stayed warm. Saw tons of signs of wildlife, some squirrels and critters. Got to look at the outdoors a little bit and just had a great time breathing in some fresh air. So join me next time as we do something fun, have a new adventure. In the meantime, go outside, enjoy yourself. Have a good one.